Hey everybody, my name is Mary Gibbs and welcome to Boo Grown Up. When I was 3 years old, I was the voice of Boo in Monsters, Inc., and here I am 20 years later. This episode is going to be all about my take on the Pixar Theory. This is definitely a big question I get at Comic-Cons, and I thought it deserved a whole video for me to really go into what I think about it, especially since Boo is a central character in the whole theory. The original Pixar Theory was devised by John Negroni. He even wrote a whole book on it, but he has a really nice blog post where he laid everything out. And then the TheSuperCarlinBrothers, they also make a lot of videos on the Pixar Theory. So they made one back a long time ago, and then they've been updating it since. So I've watched those. I've also read John Negroni's post. I haven't read his book, but I've dived pretty deep into their interpretation of the Pixar Theory. Now, there are so many other Pixar theories, especially involving Monsters, Inc. If you've never heard of adrenochrome, I'll let you go down that rabbit hole on your own. But on this video, I'm going to be focusing on a mixture of John Negroni's and the TheSuperCarlinBrothers because they are pretty similar from what I can understand. Now, I'm not going to nitpick every little piece of the theory because if I do that, there's going to be some way to refute it because that's just how it goes in this. There's so many twists and turns, but I'm going to give you my point of view from someone who grew up in Pixar with a dad as a storyboard artist. So essentially the basis for the whole Pixar theory is the thought that all Pixar movies occur on one timeline in the same universe. It's definitely a really intriguing theory, and the creativity that goes behind piecing all of these parts together is just amazing. So this whole universe supposedly has a few underlying themes, one of them being humans as a source of energy. And so this is first suggested in Toy Story, and the fact that the toys fear that they're going to be forgotten by humans, alluding that they may die without us. So this whole timeline starts with Good Dinosaur and the evolution, and it progresses with the evolution of humans and animals. We'll see that in Finding Nemo and Ratatouille. And then we start to see the rise of machines. We see that in Incredibles, and then it really becomes prominent in WALL-E, where the rise of machines also leads to pollution. Now, humans are up in space at this point with WALL-E. The Earth has died off, and the next thing to happen is cars take over. And this is just next in the timeline in the Pixar theory. And John Negroni also suggested that after WALL-E, there's Bug's Life, and Bug's Life takes place in this post-apocalyptic world. And then it said that either humans or animals mutate into monsters, and then we have Monsters, Inc. And now we have a lack of humans, and we also have a lack of energy, which is also looping back around to one of the common themes of humans as energy. Now we know in Monsters, Inc. there's an energy crisis, and in order for them to get energy, they need humans. It is suggested in this theory that in order to harness this power, the monsters who are now in the future have to time travel through the doors into the past to the humans to then get their energy. Now we're left with this little girl from the past who has been visited by this monster in the future, who now growing up becomes obsessed with trying to find Kitty and harnesses magic to try to look for him. And now we get Brave, the final piece of the Pixar theory puzzle. Now it is suggested that Boo is the old magical witch from Brave. Not only is she just old and magical, she is a time-traveling witch, and she travels throughout the Pixar universe in search of Sully. So the Pixar theory gets evidence for this by a sketch of Sully found in the old witch's workshop, and the fact that she is obsessed with bears, and the fact that Sully kind of resembles a bear. Now that's a basic outline of the Pixar theory. It definitely gets a lot more in depth, and there's a lot of twists and turns, and I'll leave links for John Negroni's website and the TheSuperCarlinBrothers video in the description box so you guys can do research on your own. But now I'm going to give you my opinion on this theory. Now let me reiterate, like I said at the beginning, I think this theory is super creative. I love how everything is pieced together, and I think it's really cool how every new movie, they find a way to fit it into the puzzle. But again, from my perspective, growing up at Pixar, I was there all the time. You could ride scooters around the building, so I scootered through every part of this building. My dad would talk to me about the entire development process of every single movie, and keep in mind that movies take minimum 4 years, but Pixar normally takes 6 to 8 years to make a movie. So keep that in mind as I move forward. Now, a big reason that I do not believe in the Pixar theory is simply the fact that a big underlying theme in the Pixar theory is this relationship of humans, animals, and machines, and the fact that humans are a source of energy. And that's great. Again, I love this underlying theme. I love the creativity that went to constructing this whole theory. But my dad was a storyboard artist on WALL-E. And this is when I was in middle school, I believe. I at least have the most memory of him talking about the production of WALL-E growing up. Now, I've spoken about this in my other videos, but again, the script is written, and then it goes to the storyboard artists who literally draw thousands of pictures, thousands and thousands and thousands of drawings, working out everything in the story. All the little jokes, the nuances, everything in the story. Now, when WALL-E was first written and the storyboard artists got this film was about aliens. WALL-E was supposed to be about aliens. They were big blobs that weren't even supposed to speak English. I remember my dad telling me that they just spoke a different language and people were just supposed to understand what they were talking about based on context clues. Now, obviously, as the movie progressed, this storyline obviously changed. Could it have changed in the process to fit into this mold of the Pixar theory and fit into some ultimate plan behind the whole company? Maybe. But in my opinion, no. Another point to make is that in Monsters, Inc., it was referenced that Mike and Sully met in 4th grade in this clip.
You've been jealous of my good looks since the 4th grade, pal.
And in Monsters University, it appears that they meet for the first time.
James P. Sullivan.
Mike Wazowski.
So I bring this up because if Pixar was so concerned with this elaborate timeline, I don't think they would have included that. And I've even asked my dad directly, is there a Pixar theory? And he doesn't really even know what I'm talking about, honestly. And sure, there could be a small number of people in the company who know about this Pixar theory and secretly try to make everything work and fit together, and great. Although I definitely believe smaller groups of people run other things in our lives, I definitely don't think this is what's going on in Pixar. I think if they wanted there to be some underlying story weaving together all of their movies, that would be something they would tell the storyboard artists. Now, the Pixar theory really gets its evidence from Easter eggs placed throughout the Pixar movies. For example, the Toys and Booze Room, or that Sully sketch in the Old Woman's Workshop. But again, these movies take 6 to 8 years to make. So although a lot of movies are kept top secret throughout different departments, overall, people do know what movies are being produced. So they know what they can add into different movies. Ultimately, I know Pixar is known for leaving a lot of Easter eggs. For example, there's a postcard that has been in a couple of Pixar movies that has caused a lot of controversy in the Pixar theory. And there's an address, and the state's initials are PD. And people were being driven crazy not knowing what PD was. You know what PD is? Pete Docter, the director of the movie. So again, that's just an example of Easter eggs. They love to include little shout-outs to people or other movies in their movies. And ultimately, I think placing Easter eggs in their movie is a great marketing tactic. Because look, it got people like us thinking about ways that they could connect and then devising this whole theory to then, oh, Bug's Life is now in the middle of the theory. Oh, wow, Bug's Life came out so long ago. I forget. Now I have to rewatch that. And it keeps it relevant. And the Easter eggs are just a fun thing to look out for, too. It's like the hidden Mickeys at Disneyland, you know? People don't read into the hidden Mickeys and, oh, why are there a bunch of hidden Mickeys everywhere? You know? I don't know. That's just my interpretation. Again, I love the idea behind the Pixar theory, so I'm not trying to knock on it at all. But although I love the fact that Boo is a time-traveling witch, I ultimately do not believe in the Pixar theory, but I think it's super creative, and I really appreciate John Negroni and the TheSuperCarlinBrothers for putting so much effort into figuring out how everything fits together, and it's really well thought out. So if you haven't really dived into the Pixar theory, or at least seen the TheSuperCarlinBrothers videos, definitely go check them out because they are worth watching. So that's what I think about the Pixar theory, but I'd love to hear what you guys think in the comments below. And while you're there, don't forget to like and subscribe and press that little bell icon to get notified on my next video, and I'll see you guys next week.